Um, okay.
Hold on. You're not on. Okay, you're on.
Okay. So this last month in April or in May, we did like a popsicle social at Nichols Park. Yeah. Mayor, he came to that. It was very fun. We had popsicles to kids. We had like a piñata. We had potato sack race. So that was our in cornhole. Yeah, that was our activity for last month.
And we pried the mayor.
Yeah.
It turned into a whipped cream fight,
It
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
and I ended up losing that fight.
I'd say you won.
I mean, I won. Yeah, you're right.
This month we are planning on doing a trail cleanup, probably at the Gailey Trail over at Nichols Park. And then we wanted to ask the council about Founders Day and what plans are for that, and also about what the council is doing for the parade this year.
Two great questions, and we will be discussing both of those later on. Your liaison will be in touch with you and your mayor. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
With the details on both of those.
Yeah. And then our last thing is we wanted to say that the Youth City Council is going to be recruiting new members. So we wanted to ask the council to be in touch with your community and try to recruit new members for the Youth City Council.
Great. That's fantastic. How did things go this year for you?
It was good. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you guys have a good time? Did you
Yeah.
learn?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Awesome.
Can we get your name?
I'm Grayson Davis.
Ella Williams.
Who?
Ella Williams.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Diane will get in touch with you on both of those items, and she'll be in touch with your mayor about Founders Day as well as the parade.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming tonight.
Yep.
Jeff Euler, you're up.
Are we going to have our public comments? We have the public comments too. We didn't.
Do we have a internet connection?
I have a connection with my phone and it's recording the sound and the video, but I can't put it.
Okay, so let's do a presentation from Jeff Euler first, and then if the internet comes up, that would work out well. Is that right, City Council? You all right with that?
That's fine.
Okay. Jeff Euler is our city planner, and he is doing a presentation on the recent legislation on developments within cities. Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, thank you. It was an interesting legislative period this year. The most land use bills that have ever been passed in one given time. Makes a number of changes that the city has to adopt. So let's just jump into this. Starting with House Bill 364, which is moderate income housing regulations. I'm going to remind the council that when we updated the general plan and adopted that, we adopted as part of that the moderate income housing element, which is required by state law. And I'll refer back to that in a minute, but there was 5 strategies that are related to that plan. And so now what this House Bill 364 does is says, this is how you're going to implement that plan. They're saying it's not enough that we just have a plan, we have to demonstrate. There's a report due on August 1st. Now, if you guys can tell me how we're going to meet any of these requirements by August 1st, you'll be a miracle worker. But Yes.
Jeff, does the report need to say we have met or just give a report?
I'm gonna tell you what the report is gonna require here in just a second. The reporting year is from October of 22 through July of 23. Because we were supposed to have our plan done in October of 22, but we didn't, and ours is pretty new, it's gonna be pretty hard for us to meet most of these requirements. Luckily, the penalties don't kick into effect till next year, so we still may be okay. But I bolded this, and this is what we are supposed to do in our reporting. We're supposed to demonstrate that the action taken is relevant to making meaningful progress towards the specified city's implementation plan. So these are the things we have to include in our report. A description of the actions taken, one time or ongoing in the previous 12 months. A description of each land use decision made, one time or ongoing in the 12 months prior to submitting the report. I don't know if that's every single land use decision we've made in the city or just related to our elements of the plan. That's what I'm assuming. Third is a description of the barriers encountered during the previous 12-month period. 4 is information regarding the number of internal and external or detached ADUs located within the municipality. We can probably do that. I don't know if we have a list, Jacob, of all of the ADUs that have been approved in the city, but we ought to be thinking about that. I think that list is pretty short at this time, but we can report what we've got. And then this next one, I don't even know what this means. A description of how the market has responded to the selected moderate income housing plan strategies. So if you know what that means, that's,
I'm wondering if that maybe, like, one of our strategies is to allow ADUs and how many, not just how many static ADUs, but look, we've added this many. And so maybe it's a report of, this is what we allowed in our thing, this is how it's changed our community.
yes, and maybe that has the development community come flooding into the city all of a sudden with all these projects that.
All these moderate income housing projects.
Yeah. And then the last thing is any recommendations on how the state can support the city in implementing moderate income housing strategies. I suppose we could say get off our back. Or give us grant. Yeah. And this bill also has put into place some consequences for non-compliance. Luckily, these fees don't go into effect until 2024, and it's $250 a day fine for the year you are not compliant, and in 2025 that doubles to $500 a day. That could be in addition to other stated fees that they say they'll withhold our B&C road funds possibly. This is not well received by a lot of cities.
Can the cities get together and put something together to push back against the state legislature in overstepping their bounds?
I don't know.
I think we should wait and see all the bills that were passed. This is just one of many.
So,
What about the league? What are they saying?
they're saying that this is harsh. This is difficult. There are so many things that are outside of the city's control. We don't control real estate values and what developers want and don't want to do. And there's a myriad of things, but I want to remind you right now what it was that we put in our general plan for strategies. Strategy 1 was rezone for densities. And that's not on your paper there. I'm just reading this off this. Fruit Heights will rezone for densities necessary to facilitate the production of moderate income housing. And then our implementation. So this is what will be graded on. Our implementation strategy was the city will create and adopt a new high-density zoning classification that will create incentives to allow higher density projects to be built in the city. The attorney started working on this. We have the R3 zone, which allows higher densities, but he wanted to create another zone that separated itself from everything and talked about incentives. Whether at the end of the day, we'll get to something that you all feel comfortable about, I don't know, but that's what we said we're gonna try and do. We said that we'd do this by January of 24, and August of 23 comes before that. So that's one that I'm not sure how we're gonna implement that before August. The second one is that we will create or allow for and reduce regulations related to internal or detached dwelling units. We have passed, well, here's the implementation. Monitor the number of applications received and approved for accessory apartment dwellings biannually, June and December of each year, and assess the effectiveness of the city's new code. So we've adopted this code. We have an internal accessory dwelling unit ordinance. I think all we can do there is just say, we've had X number of applications, we've talked to X number of people, we have 5 or 10 or whatever we have, we've approved 10 applications for an internal accessory dwelling unit. We got one, is that what you're saying? We have one?
One.
So 10 might be aggressive.
Can I just say, and this is not popular, but I felt like the checklist that we put together as a city was a little bit onerous. And if I felt that way, and I'm pretty good at it, I suspect that other people are gonna struggle putting everything together.
Confusing or just too difficult?
Just asking a lot that maybe, and maybe you don't want to go into this right now, but one of the requirements is to change out my smoke detector for one that's a smoke and carbon monoxide. Well, I already have a carbon monoxide that's plugged into the wall, but our ordinance now requires that I change that out for $50, and which is no big deal for me. But I mean, that's just one of the things, you know, separate garbage can, which again, you know, it's just that there's a lot. I felt like there was a lot of hoops to jump through to do this. And so, you know, I'm wondering if we would get better compliance if it weren't quite as difficult.
I don't know if we're expected to go out and find the people that are doing it illegally and bring them into compliance.
Well, I think you are. I think honestly, in so many ways, that's the only way we're going to show that we've made progress is by saying, hey, these are the rules, and anybody that's doing this needs to come in and get these done, whether we put that out in the Ridge Runner as kind of a polite ask to start with, but we have a lot of these in our community. And for me to be the only one should be telling you that something's not quite
We
there.
probably need to be more aggressive. That's the one strategy out of the 5 that I think that there's like a map. We've got it. We go out and see what we can do, and we track it. And everything else on here is kind of like a pie in the sky.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's that. Strategy 3 is rezone for higher density or moderate income residential development.
That was strategy.
This is the one that we said, we identified like 6 pieces of property in the entire city that is still like open space and of a size that could accommodate maybe some higher density. And this was our implementation. The city will identify areas on the zoning map that can be considered for higher density zoning. They will meet with current landowners to assess interest. They will also consider whether or not to actually rezone property to a new zoning district. So we're basically saying that we're gonna go out and assess what we got left and identify whether or not it's appropriate to consider some of this property for higher density. And maybe a part two to that would be whether we would consider actually zoning that property to a higher density ahead of a developer.
Or potentially against the will of the landowner.
Well, I think saying meeting with the landowner means that we're not doing anything against their will. In my mind, you're not gonna do something that the landowner doesn't want done. So that's, in my mind, that's what meeting with the landowner means. Now, I mean, we can cut this up any way you want, but, I don't recommend that we go out and tell somebody what they can do with the property. But we can discuss it and say, would you be interested?
So can we go to Rockoff Woods Estates and put that as our R3?
Against their will?
Well,
I don't know.
whether they develop within the R3 or not, they can choose to develop, they can choose to subdivide it however they want.
I don't think it does us any good to say, we rezoned you for higher density, but you didn't do it.
Right.
I mean, that ship's already sailed, I feel like. I feel like this should be something that happens in the future.
Okay.
Sorry,
Jeff, we gotta keep rolling, man.
Okay, so 4 was, implement zoning incentives. Those are such things, density, impact fee waivers. All of those have pitfalls. And then the last one was whether or not the city was interested in reducing impact fees. These are all very difficult discussions for a small city and a city that is nearly at build out. I just don't know what the legislature expects. And this is not something that is unique to Fruit Heights City. There's half of the cities in this county are at or nearly built out. Let's move on. House Bill 406 covers several land use elements. Number 1 is we can only require a maximum of 32 feet of pavement on a city residential street. So this is just your standard residential street, maximum of 32 feet. We can go less, but not higher. Luckily, they were trying to get this thing at 25 and there was too much pushback, but luckily that's right where our asphalt cross section is at, is 32. So we're fine as far as that's concerned. The next one is lot line adjustments between 2 lots no longer require a subdivision plat. There's a lot of it makes things easier, but there's major pitfalls to that. 2 landowners go and change their lot line and don't record anything. Now nobody knows what the lots lines are anymore. You buy and sell houses and you find out you don't own what you thought you owned. If there isn't a process, if the city doesn't implement a process that says at least have to come in and give, then you could have chaos.
If you don't have to have it for, how do you keep it set up? And those kinds of things that are built into our ordinance right there.
Precisely. This is completely just a no thought out law.
It's already passed, right?
It's passed. These are in, well, they're not all in effect, but they're coming. It's passed. The next one is
There's no plan. How do we-
on development agreements now. We have to, if there's a portion of a development agreement that is taking away a developer's right of something that is guaranteed by a state, we have to notify them of that fact. If they're giving up something that they have been protected in state law, we have to declare that. I don't think we'll ever run into this kind of an issue. This sounds like a Salt Lake City thing, but Developers have attorneys too that are supposed to be telling them what's good and what's not, so I don't think we're gonna have too much problem with that. I don't see one. And then the last thing on that is you can no longer stack a moratorium. So if we put a moratorium in place for 6 months, I'm gonna say, "Well, we're not ready to go. We'll continue it for another 6 months." Can't do that. You have 6 months to figure out whatever you want to figure out, and that's it on that particular issue. That is going to be hard, because sometimes it just takes longer than that. So that one is one that we'll have to watch. On the Senate Bill 174, the first thing is, this is related to subdivisions now. The city has to designate an administrative land authority to review subdivision applications. My understanding is that can either be a separate group of people, or it can be totally administrative by the staff, or it can be a combination of both. So the planner, the city manager, the city engineer. I understand one person from the planning commission, one, no one from the city council. City council will no longer approve a subdivision ever again.
But the city council still gets zoning.
Yes.
We still can zone.
Yes, you will still see a rezone, but you will never see another subdivision plat. Two-step process. The first one is a preliminary application. Must be reviewed within 15 days of the application. My understanding is that preliminary application can go to the planning commission. Not final, but the preliminary can go to the planning commission. And then the final, which has to be reviewed within 20 days, can be done by this administrative land use authority, whoever you decide that's gonna be. We have to have that implemented into the code by February 1st of 24. So we've got a little bit of time to work on that. I just want to mention that a complete application is a huge battle. These things have gone to court, district court before, about what constitutes a complete application. Is it in the opinion of the city? Is it in the opinion of the developer? What does that constitute? Onto the second page, there's 2 distinct appeal processes for this process that is supposed to resolve disputes if the developer has a dispute about something the city has said or done. That's something that we would set up. We'd have to have a body that does that. And then the last thing is on internal ADUs, there's a few clarifying things. An attached garage can now be converted into an ADU. It has to share a common wall with the house, not a breezeway, not connected with the roof and something else. It has to be part of the house. You can turn your garage into an ADU attached to the house. It prohibits the government from regulating internal connectivity between ADU and primary dwelling. I'm not sure exactly what that is. I think
That's requiring the ADU to have like its own electric or its own water meter. Some cities were trying to require
that it has its own.
that. It has its own and not just be part of
Yeah,
one that's in.
that could be that. Then the third thing is the municipal architecture requirements for ADUs must be consistent with the regulations applied to other single-family units. So basically, it said it just needs to be integrated as part of the house, but not going above and beyond that. Next one is that it clarifies that municipalities can require one off-street parking space in addition to the parking spaces required by the regular land use ordinance. So you can require one additional parking stall for an ADU. And then the last one is that states that 25% of the residential land use exception from the IADU provision does not apply to new construction with a final plat approved on or after October 1st, 2021. I'm not sure exactly what that means. Unless it's talking about the 25% filling up no more than 25% of your total lot.
I think, Jeff, we exempted lots of like
8,000
square
lots.
feet. And I wonder if it's trying to say that if it was built after that, then we can't.
I think that's right. I think that's what it is. It's that 25% of the city that we could have taken out of these rules.
And we did.
Yeah, we did. The last thing that I was gonna mention, and this is interesting, you stick this in the back of your mind, Senate Bill 199 says that you cannot bring a referendum by the voting public on a land use decision that was passed by unanimous vote. So if you all vote aye on something and the neighborhood says, we're bringing this to a referendum, you cannot do it. If you voted against it, then that's legit. So just, I don't know if we'll run into this, just keep that plugged in the back. That there's been a lot of referendum trouble in the state, mostly in Salt Lake County. It's neighbors coming against the development community for everything that happens. We've never done that here. So I think the modern income housing requirements are harsh and they're going to be extremely difficult for I don't know what that means. Subdivision stuff isn't going to be pleasant, but we'll get through it. It's going to be hard for the city council, who's always been the final approving body in the city, the elected officials, have no part of it. That's going to be interesting.
Does the league have any intention of trying to find a sponsor to change this next legislative session? Some of these for cities.
They're certainly talking about it, but it just appears that the way our legislature is stacked is that cities are losing more and more power every year.
I'll say they're Republican, but they are voting for they are voting.
It feels as though we're headed down a road, we're headed towards a day when we don't have any power. And it's free for all. That'll be a sad day. That'll be a bad day. There's some deadlines and some things that we need to meet.
Can I ask for some clarity?
Yes.
On number one, rezone for densities for moderate income housing. We don't have to just rezone for density. We have to rezone for density that's going to allow moderate income housing. Is that what I heard you say?
Well, I think there's two pieces to that. One, do you have zoning classification that allows higher density? Yes, we have the R3 zone now that does. We've got some examples of properties that did that. If we implemented another zoning classification that does the same thing, maybe it goes a step further, that's a positive thing. And you can take that third step, and that is you actually want to identify some property and go out and zone it and say, we invite you to come out and do this.
So I think that's probably a good idea to have an ordinance that's a little bit tighter, because honestly, that whole complex down at the end of Nichols Road was promised that that was gonna be part of modern income housing.
Yep.
And yet, I mean, you and I know that, but we
It's all rentals.
and not necessarily modern income rentals. Because those rents are going up and up and up, and they were supposed to have been sold as condominiums that were very affordable. And we have no teeth in any of our laws that enforce that.
I think that the one thing that we ought to strive to do in the next year, year and a half, is have a couple of successes that we can point at, that something that we've actually done. Have we taken a piece of property and allowed it to be a higher density project? If we could have a project or two that is in the pipeline and something we can point to and say, this is what we've done, I think that that's gonna be good.
But if we start with the planning commission pushing forward a zone that's a little bit different, as you just mentioned, is that where we need to start?
Yeah,
Because otherwise we have no teeth. We need something that has teeth, or else we're not gonna get it.
Yeah.
As a developer comes in and says they're gonna build a $400,000 unit, and they start looking at life and they say, wow, I'm a lot more money if I sell just a $150,000 unit. And that's what it turns into, and we have nothing to stop that.
no, we don't control that stuff either.
Unless we did it with a separate zone.
But what's the point of having an affordable thing? Make it affordable. I mean, like,
Well, isn't that the whole discussion?
Yes.
What is the point?
Yeah.
And maybe that's the point that you ought to bring up to your local legislature, is that, what is the point here? What are you trying to do?
Thank you, Jeff Weller. You really know how to look the crowd. Oh, man.
All right.
I guess I should turn the mic on. Good thing it wasn't caught on the hot mic. Moving back up to item number 2, since we have streaming the declaration of conflict of interest, we have any that needs to be discussed this time. Seeing or hearing anything, we move on to item number
As we discussed the fee schedule for, or what we're doing on the ADUs.
There's nothing being decided, it's just a discussion.
Okay, I'm just saying that I'm,
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right.
I have a conflict of interest there.
Thank you. Item number 3, which is the public comment time. Anyone want to present anything to city council? Not seeing or hearing anything. Item number 4 is a public hearing. I would look for a motion to move into a public hearing.
I move that we move into a public.
A motion from Flo and a second from Diane. All in favor of moving into public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Public hearing has now begun. This time I invite anyone to present anything to city council regarding the budgets or the budget amendments. Not seeing or hearing anything, I would look for a motion to close the public hearing.
close the public hearing.
I have a motion from George. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Flo. All in favor of moving out of the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Moving on to item number 5.1, and we normally, just as a point of reference, when we're raising taxes, we usually have who wants to speak. There isn't anyone today because we're not really raising any rates or taxes, so didn't really anticipate very much going on in that discussion. Item number 5.1 is review, discuss, approve, and add fiscal year 2023 budget amendments. Those are amendments that we need to make now before we finalize this budget and we adopt next year's fiscal year budget. Do you want to run with that?
Yeah, to start, to explain, the state requires that we do a public hearing and we have the council approve budget amendments when we increase the overall budget. In this case, that is what we're doing. There's 2 reasons behind it. One, we do have more revenue coming in, but that's not necessarily a reason to amend. But that revenue is tied to some increased expenditures. On the expenditure side, it is increased, so we do need to increase the revenue side. The other second issue that we're running into, which is a good issue, is we don't want to go over the 35% threshold for fund balance in the general fund. And we do run that risk if we don't amend this right now, that we could go over that and we can't be penalized by the state for that. Those are the two main reasons why I'm presenting these amendments to you. Otherwise, if we don't increase the overall budgets, it's really an administrative thing. We can move funds between budgets if we feel like we need to, but bottom line, as long as each of those funds, the general fund, proprietary funds, as well as any other funds that we have, if they're balanced or they don't go over, then it passes the sniff test. Our auditors are fine with that.
We still,
It lets you know that if there is any issues or overages within certain. I like to do those internally, which is more efficient that way, but of course the council will be those issues. So you know you don't actually vote. In this case, though, we are increasing the budgets. So real quickly, we're bringing in more property taxes and stuff. And we also need to move some of our fund balance into another account. The account that I'm moving it into is our capital improvement. We also have a few other overages that look bad. There's some explanation to those. You could, Haley, you could go to the second page, actually the first page. The first one you see there is under city manager, and I don't know if you guys were in this meeting. Yeah.
it's really hard. Can you make it bigger over there? Because it's not coming up on my computer.
Super difficult to see.
Maybe if I stand over there and point at things, maybe it'd be a little easier.
That would help. Or take your little red pointer thing. Sure. If it don't have a little red pointer somewhere.
That's right, she's talking about it.
All right, so this
Councilmember Diane Anderson,
Aye.
Councilmember Ivan Moss,
Aye.
Councilmember Paul Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember
George
George Rader.
Aye. Thank you. Item number 5.2, which is review, discuss fiscal year 2024 final budget. The reason we do not approve this tonight is because we don't have final numbers tomorrow in our meeting, correct?
Yeah, so we don't have our property tax numbers yet. We're having a meeting tomorrow at 10 o'clock a.m. That was 2 days ago.
And what's our drop dead date for this?
End of the month?
We can do it next week.
Yes. It's on the agenda to do next month. Well,
no, I think we should
we're gonna
discuss
discuss, it. We're gonna review, discuss. That's what it's about. But we're gonna discuss this right now.
Jacob.
Jacob, you want to run with it?
Yep, and- Okay. So Haley, if you could go to, you can skip. I hope you had a chance to read the message. Just so you know, my audience, when I write these messages, is the general public. So it seems too simple for you, I'm sorry.
I have one question for you, if you can just go back up one page.
Yeah.
real quick. Right there. So, paragraph where you say user fees have not been increased in years, but the cost to provide those services. It's the fourth paragraph.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, right.
What user fees haven't been increased?
Well, my understanding is water fees have not been increased.
Only for like, we have a fee schedule in place that increased them every year for, up until like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think that's a little bit, by saying, you know, we've not increased it in years, makes it sound like 5 or 6 years, and that's not true.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is that it hasn't been increased during these high inflationary years. Well, it hasn't.
We have that.
Well, this is my message. I can send it. I can do that. Yeah. So
Because it seems like two paragraphs, almost repeating this, that we can't see this.
yes, yeah, you're right. I did notice that. Yeah, I talked about how it covers the future
It
projects.
almost seems like that's what I was just trying to understand is what user fees are we really referring to in that? So anyway.
Yeah, and that would be storm drain and water. Garbage not necessarily, but those ones that are tied to any capital infrastructure. I'm more concerned about the future costs, where we're a pay-as-you-go city and how far behind we are now on what those are inside of the master plan. I haven't had a chance to review those yet. I'll get there. But I anticipate that, like I said in here, we'll review, not necessarily increase, but we'll review those fees and see how we're doing. That's on my list of things to do this year.
Thanks, Jacob.
Yep.
Want to keep rolling?
Yeah, we can keep going. So I haven't changed much from what I submitted to you guys back in May. I finalized some numbers, but some of the things that I did want to point out is on the revenue side. Haley, if you'll go to the first page of the actual Excel document. Oh, okay. Yes, I'll put it right there. The biggest increases that you're going to see are here in the admin cost share. And the reason for that is because I've done a little bit of restructuring in the accounting for each department. I've moved employees into the department that they're related to, where they're performing their duties. And the major one is Public Works. I've moved Public Works out of those enterprise funds, the water and the storm drain, and I put them into this Public Works admin, which is a new department. It's not a new department, but it's a new accounting area. Because in truth, all the Public Works employees do a little bit of work in every single one of those areas: road, park, water, storm drain. They all have a part. And it's more, we can account for it more accurately by a percentage of how much time they work if we have that all sitting there in one fund. And then what we do is whatever that percentage is, we charge that back to whatever that fund is, water, storm drain, garbage collection even. We charge it to that. And that's what these charges are here. So that's why you see the increase. There is actually a formula. We've actually taken actual numbers for each of those budgets for the personnel and given it a percentage. So this is a more accurate depiction of what it costs. And that goes back into the general fund for that personnel for that area. And you can see that I think there's just 4 of them that are charged to the solid waste, the storm drain, the sewer, and the water fund.
And this is kind of where I was going before.
Yeah.
And I know this is, the explanation you've given is good. I have no problem with the way you're accounting for it. That's fantastic, actually. But what I'm not really fully coming to grips with is it felt like there's suddenly a bunch more money, like at the end of the day. I want to kind of understand where that's coming from.
Yeah, well, it is coming from those enterprise funds. You just didn't see that before. It's coming back into the general fund. But at the same time, the expenses have gone up as well in the general fund to account for that. So they do offset each other. It just looks like the general fund has increased because it is pulling from those enterprise funds. Before we left it in those enterprise funds. And I would actually say the general fund was subsidizing the enterprise funds. I think it went the other way. So now this is a more accurate accounting of what it actually costs to provide those services. So yes. That's kind of how it is right now. It's kind of, yeah, about 50% of my time's on water. He's probably spent this many hours on garbage, going to get the containers and fixing containers, that sort of delivering. And working with the contractor, Robinson, the front staff, how much time they answer the calls. It's all of them, all that are involved, about how much time we spend in it. In truth, really here at City Hall, we are working with these services more than anything else. These enterprise services that we're providing are taking more than 50% of the time of staff, all of them, not just public works, but also office staff as well. I mean, the time that we spend with engineering on master plans and coming before you in your time talking about, I mean, even right now, you can say 50% of our time is 50% of our budget, enterprise funds. 50% of this time really is spent on these enterprise funds. So, does that make sense? Okay.
How come we weren't seeing them before?
How come we weren't seeing that before? I don't understand how it was figured out before. I couldn't find a document with these percentages and why we were doing this rounded number. I'm not sure.
Well, just because, like, that's not a few dollars off. That's a lot different. That's a lot.
Well, the way it went before is that we had an employee assigned to water, and that employee was paid for by water. But that employee is not spending 100% of his time in water, and there are other employees helping with water. So what he's doing is he's taking that employee's salary out of water, and he's putting it into a general fund, so that this fund pays for all the employees, and it's appropriate based on amount of time spent on the different funds.
That aspect of it makes complete sense. But when we scroll to the end of the whole spreadsheet, we got 3.5 versus 2.7. That's a significant percentage increase.
And that's
If I have
different.
my wallet, I have $100 in there. I can't just suddenly go, now I've got 150.
Yeah, and the difficult part is in the enterprise funds, because we have so many projects and because we are transferring so much money out of the general fund to each of those for the projects, I'm keeping the two separate, project and then personnel and operations. So you don't have a steady number on the enterprise fund from year to year to year. You can't explain why it went up $1 million, why it went down 500. most of the case, it's because of a major project or grant money that we received. So that does make it harder to see.
And this past year, we have received a very nice sizable grant that will be used in these.
Is that accounted for, is that amount accounted for in this spreadsheet? Is it shown here? Is that
Yes.
where some of the extra funds is coming from?
It's in the water fund, actually.
And that is where some of those extra funds are coming from.
No, the extra funds are coming from reducing 100% of the personnel costs in those enterprise funds and putting them into the general fund. That's where it's coming from. So-
His question is the grant money being accounted for in the water fund?
Yes, it's in the water fund.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, it's all in the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So that grant is the increase at the bottom you're seeing.
That's what I'm
So
saying.
here, it's that grant.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, if
Where
we were-
the extra money coming from?
Yeah, if you were,
It's not coming from somewhere.
yeah, if you were gonna, yeah, if you were to pull that grant out in the project as well, you'd actually see a reduction in the water enterprise fund.
Okay, yeah, I just wasn't sure where the extra funds were coming from. I mean,
And next year, I like to separate your personnel and operating from your project costs. That would be easier to track that, because you really want to see that operating cost. You want to make sure that's pretty steady.
well, what we did that is great, and I totally follow. I just didn't know the extra money. And you know,
Right.
like how are we getting that?
Yep.
'Cause-
And next year, without any restructuring, you won't see any of these large numbers.
Okay.
Thanks, Rick.
So that's the main thing. Yeah, that's the main change. Everything else is pretty much the same.
And we reviewed it 2 weeks ago pretty thoroughly. We gave a pretty good explanation of everything. So with that, are there any questions?
And no mark on the revenue side or on the delinquent prior taxes, the typo on that.
Where was it at?
Third line out.
Riley, you want to go back up?
Uh,
Oh, you mean the delinquent taxes?
What did it say? Delinquent prior taxes on
Yeah.
on,
Yeah, because that's about what we're collecting this year. Yeah. So I'm bringing it down, and I've noticed historically, we don't collect a whole lot there. FY20, yeah, and I guess it depends on, the state of the economy. I've seen that number fluctuate, how many people pay their property taxes or pay them late. It's been a good year. This last year's been a good year. I anticipate that we're not gonna have that much of a recession. If we have one at all this next year, I don't think we're gonna collect much.
The interest rates are really high. And a lot of their property tax money, you can make more money.
Mhm.
That's pretty long.
Well, okay. Good to know.
Nice, Rick.
I won't be able to.
I have one more question.
Let's go ahead, Rick.
Oh,
Charges for services. Right there, very bottom.
Oh, right down there. Well, that's the
1034.
projected, yeah, I don't know how those got, those must have, the percentage, I don't know how that got in there. Yeah, that does need to be fixed. That's interesting. I don't even know what those numbers would be at this point. They're gonna be similar to, our projected. Yeah, thank you, nice catch. Yeah. Well, that'll be fixed before I bring it back in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I had that mic off, sorry. It's bad. Maybe I'll tell you at the moment. You good?
do you need to recap that?
Yes, I can. On the revenue
Actually,
page, there is a mistypo on
If you
account.
reference.
I was going to, yeah. On account numbers 10-34130, 10-34240, account 10-34740, the typo on the FY23 projection.
Thanks, George Wright. Eileen, do you have any questions?
I did have a couple of questions. Since the city council has passed municipal for most of our tasks is keeping track of checkbook. In the past, we've discussed salaries, and I understand that maybe that doesn't need to be a public discussion, but, and we did a few or the salaries and where we are.
Oh, yeah, sure, that's fine.
And, I didn't, are we applying for any grants in the coming year that we know of yet?
Not that we know of right now, but that is something that we discussed quite a bit, and we'll let you know when something. There's nothing big in this.
Nothing
We don't-
additional to go in the budget right now.
We don't have any applications submitted right now.
Okay, then I give, two these. One is to take another for your preparedness. That's somewhere else.
I believe there's a little bit in there.
There's nothing there.
There's nothing in emergency preparedness at all.
I would like to talk to you about that. I would like to-
Well, just let me know a number and I can put that in there.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know what you spent in the past. I don't know what you even use it for. Usually I know in prior cities, that's one that's left open, that's amended in the future for emergencies. But if it's emergency preparedness, I don't know.
We have that practice. I'd like to talk to you about that because we also have one of our public works members that's assigned to help as our emergency manager. And so you're really gonna pull all of the salaries and wages to one cost center, then perhaps that and to our new person to do something. Our new person to go to some training. So that needs to be a cost center for emergency
Okay.
repairs. So you're okay, I can work with you on that.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then.
I think that was there, in fact, that it's not for an emergency that we're setting aside preparedness.
Well,
But we have an actual emergency preparedness.
okay, because I'm saying there is 1,000 and then there's 1,200, which is the same as what was budgeted this year. And there's only that amount projected to be spent.
So I'd like to talk about maybe this is the line.
Well, it is right there
It's there.
and it's funded.
It's not, I mean, money. Right now, we have problems.
I don't know, it's quite.
I've got one that doesn't look sharp myself. Is there one? I don't know what it is, not coordinating, I can't get it to work. Not sharp.
We'll set it on charter, didn't we?
That's not correct.
All right, very good.
One more question. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. I'm gonna listen to you.
Okay. On the vehicle and equipment fund.
Yes, so that'd be the very last page.
There is on account 61-38-100 is the top line interest earnings. You have a proposed 24 budget of 20,000. The FY23 is 200 and FY22 actual is 3,000. I get interest rates are good, but I don't know if 20,000.
I actually went into that account myself to take a look at the interest earnings, and that's about what it's going to be today. 20,000.
How much is in the fund?
Where is it? Yeah, well, we haven't received a few vehicles, and that's why we're receiving that.
Say that one more time, sorry.
We haven't received a few vehicles and paid for those vehicles yet. That's why the fund is so high.
So we transferred money last year, in a sense, that earned interest in that account.
He's just saying.
I'm
he
trying
thinks
to
it's
do
same.
the math in my head. Sorry to make that make sense. So 5% on 100.
And that might be something I would work.
So we have to have $500,000 in there.
So our CPA firm does allocate based on the balances that are available because we receive that interest as a lump sum. And then they divide that out based on the fund balances. I can check with them and see. It may have been at the beginning of the year. I don't know. I'd have to take a
Maybe
look.
there's roughly
I think he's just saying $20,000 for interest income. That sounds like how much money do we have in? That's what it is.
Or how much
And
we will
I
have.
see the same thing.
Yeah, and how much we
He's
will
thinking
have
like,
in there.
wow, how much did we put in?
And that may just be the CPA for us to allocate that interest correctly, because I was wondering that about, I think it was our class C. It looked like it was, maybe it wasn't the class. Yeah, I think it was the class C was a little low.
Class C, yeah, it's low, right?
Yeah, that's low. I would think that would be more. And maybe I'll put that on my list. Maybe they've swapped those two. I don't know. I can check that.
Did you have another question?
I did. We have 1072, 615 uniforms for youth recreation. Something we haven't had before. I'm wondering what we have planned, what's going on with that. It's 1072, 615.
You go up to them. That was budgeted this year.
Yeah.
So I just carried forward the number we had from.
So I used to cancel the area from there. What are we doing with that?
Know that this year, I don't know about the expense of the uniforms. I was there when they did uniforms. I thought they used to cover most of the cost of uniforms.
Yeah, but that's YCC, that's not youth recreation. So I don't know why you put the YCC under youth recreation.
Yeah, it is. It is for the council.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, that's for their jackets and shirts.
There's one of that. We don't have any youth recreation per se.
I could change the name to youth council.
Yeah.
That area, that'll make it easier. I wondered that myself, so I don't know if we had it in the past, if we want to have it in the future. Yeah.
I did have another question. Right now, I lobbyist firm, and I'm wondering how with our kind of different accounting, how is, what account is that coming out of the amount of lobbyist? And is that like, then you go back and charge, like if it is a water grant, you go back and charge water for their fee, or, you know, if you get a road grant, you go back and charge roads for their fee. And I didn't know we had a plan for that.
And I believe this last year was all in the water fund. I believe that's what we paid for it. And I believe this year, that's what we're anticipating to be paid for as well, because that's where the grant money so far that they lobbied for, we've received. So it's paying for that grant at this point, yeah.
And what if we go for a year where we don't get any grants over sales?
I'd say it'd still be water fund. That's the only thing we've gotten from them at this point. But if we get something else, or if we go after something else, yeah, I think it's fair that we start to allocate that to those other funds.
I do have one more question, and this stems back a few weeks ago when we looked at fund balances. I noticed our cash account in Zion was 250,000. Is there any concern from the council or the staff at the risk that that money might be at outside of the FDIC insurance?
It was probably just because of the snapshot in time. I'm sure that was before an accounts payable went through. We don't usually hold that much in there. Yeah, I think we try to keep it at right around 100,000, because that pretty much will cover everything.
Cool.
I think when that happened, we were actually paying for a vehicle. And so there was more of that. There was that transfer from our treasurer pool to the Zions.
Thank you, Jacob.
Yep.
Any other questions? Moving on to item number 5.3, Darren, which is review, discuss, approve, deny the accessory dwelling unit fee schedule.
It's not in our contract.
So I didn't have any fees. I've been going through and talking to a lot of different cities, so I thought I would. I did put in there that this issue. So I see that explain why the cities are doing that. So I talked with surrounding communities, Gainesville, Layton, Burlington, Central, and about what they're charging their individuals for their fees. Kaysville right now, you charge a $30 fee. They don't do anything, it's just, you fill out a piece of paper and they charge you $30. There's no inspection, there's no anything else. They're supposed to have a extra garbage can, just like our ordinance, extra garbage can, extra, parking spot, all those kinds of things.
One-time bill or is
It's just a one-time deal. Layton does a $50.50 fee, and it is just an inspection. I talked to how they will inspect it, they said, we only do it on a brand new build. So if it's brand new build or a remodel, we do an inspection. Otherwise, we're not inspecting. We'll take a fee, but it doesn't mean it's like. So, I was kind of like, and then they also did require a package. With the property. Farmington, there is no fee for their internal, and then we'll keep record of theirs. When you do their external units, it is $225. That's the one that's being also.
Which city was that?
That's Farmington. Centerville, which is the one that I'm recommending. They also, if they're $150, they just changed theirs. It's $150 a one-time fee. They go out, they require a site plan, they require, an affidavit to be recorded, and I believe they recorded, so they know they have it. So they have to have all that stuff figured out, filed, and like that. The reason I talked to them while they're doing affidavits and stuff like that, both Layton and Seville said they had issues where people have put their house and rent upstairs and upstairs and sold it as a lease class. Which is why I see ordinance and then people buying or buying a duplex and if.
So do they intend to enforce that in our city, the up and down rent for those that are already operating?
That's what I've just been reading our ordinance and I've been trying to go through and figure out how it is. So far, all the applications, yours.
They're already up and down rentals.
Those ones, I believe we're gonna have to start going through doing enforcement. I mean, it is our ordinance. I think that's something that we now need to do, start enforcing our code for those things. Centerville, I talked to them, again, I called her back and talked to her. She said the raise because cost, ended up costing them an administrative fee when they're going out checking, and do all that. So that's why they're doing that.
Did they say how many units they're getting?
Cable's just starting, and trying to figure it out. They're kind of like us. They're trying. They has quite a few, but there is more on their new builds where they're catching in more than or remodel and more established. He has a huge code enforcement department, so if they hear one or anything like that, they'll send it to me. This, yeah, go through. So they can increase. Several was doing the same thing. She didn't tell me how many they had, but she said, you're one or there's some said, yeah, sent a little bit out, they document it.
So there was, so the new build, we're saying people building those ADs, that's part.
As part of the new bill, we're starting to, it sounds like we're adding a finish station. Finish basement. The inspector or as a new planner use, and they see that, they're documenting that and they, I'm not running that. They're making that.
That's the appearance. And
That's the appearance when if they were due, and it's.
So during the affidavit, one of the things you list in there, that's something along the lines of, if you're not going to use it as an AED, you have to take out the function, you know, start or something like that. What is the point of that? And the reason I ask that is, having been you, what if at some point in time, I go back to, you know, it's my mother lived there for 5 years, and that was within our code. And what if I go back to that type of situation where it's a family member in there? What, I mean, why? What is?
So I actually just took that from Centerville's, ladies, almost same thing. And so I just put it out and just took it and brought that out. This is how they're doing it. I have never done suggestions on going through because it seems like nobody really has any information on this. Everybody's still trying to figure it out. Centerville and Lake are probably the farthest ahead out of what I talked to. And they sent me the ordinance, it's not necessarily go through green. It's pretty comparable to the internal as ours is. As that matter. But it seems like they force it and are following through with it. The other cities are trying to figure it out. That's something that was just in there, so I just put it in there. You can be taking it out, I have no problem with that.
And nothing else that is, and then the other thing, and again, I stated I have a conflict. On this, I want to be compliant, but I want to have a license. But what is the point of me having a license if nobody else does? And so I would want to see us enforcing what we have, but at the same time, we want to do something that is doable. As we talked about with Jeff and modern income housing, I feel like my ED was providing modern income housing. And so we want it to be something that people will want to do. And so, for instance, I used to have a recycle can. I said, you told me I had that can. You know, there's only 4 of us living in the house with my EDU, and I got 1 can, I have 6 kids. But you're telling me I have 2 cans, so I need 6 to recycle cans. So, you see what I'm saying? Some of these things, I'm not sure they're as well thought out as we were saying. We want to encourage that, but then we want to charge you. I'm not sure 150 is. I mean, I look at it and I say, if you come and you inspect my apartment, and it's a little bit of time to write the license and do everything. So, so if we say we're spending 2 hours, we can do this, let's say 3, and then say $170 for that 3 hours. Is that what we're looking at?
Well, so I'm gonna send those. So I believe that $10 is the actual. We go through and do it all day. All the stuff. The $40 is the recording fee. Because that's part of it. They actually said you have to go get a recording and bring it back. So they did pay for the recording.
And that is it.
And so I don't know exactly how to. You say, okay, say you could go recording, you should bring back a copy, or we have it, it's on the website, we can get that. We don't spend nothing out.
I think that's probably a good idea to do it that way. And I think it's a good idea personally to do a quick inspection, a one-time inspection of it, to do your little check marks. We really have something there. We really have a carbon monoxide. Not the appropriate egress from bedrooms. We really have these things that you say you have. One of the things in our ADU ordinance is that you can't have a kitchen to be an ADU, right? You can't have a real thing. And so for somebody to come in and say, is this
be a long-term rental, but we're putting in a nice size refrigerator and a hot plate is, you know, that needs to be an inspection. And then, and so I agree with the inspection. I also think that we need to do a conscious inspection whenever you sign a fair for this. But I also think that similar to a business license, where you're charging $5 or something here to renew those business licenses, I think that we ought to have the kind of the same minimal fee to an ADU as we do to business license, so that you're getting a little piece of paper every year that says you're.
Is there a one-time inspection?
One-time inspection.
It'd be like $20 more.
Well,
So you would say you have 150 people, and every year you have like.
I like that too. I like the sound of it. Then we have records of it. Further on, we're trying to prove that we have some ADUs. We actually have.
We have it, and you would go back.
Documentation.
And there are some places like the business license that you send out.
And we're gonna people are renting this out. I mean, you're not renting if you're letting your niece stay there, or your daughter stay there, you're not getting this. But if you're renting it out to somebody, $20 a year to keep that is really not.
Well, that's for the renter as well. Yeah, some validation that, yeah.
And that they also keep it on our books and in our fund center every single year that we do that, because then, we have it on our.
Eileen is the only applicant who wants.
Yeah, don't make me go back to the state and say we only got one.
Yeah, exactly. At least you
Strategy for talent sort of moderate housing, the ADU.
Yeah.
We felt it as that, and that.
Yeah.
We wanted our, part of our report that was doing something.
Yeah.
I mean, Eileen is. A member of the city council, I wish we could support our plan. We've had phone calls, but I have so what to tell them, you know, guys are getting that. So there's people asking.
Yeah.
I'm not all the way there yet. So.
So I recommend, make a recommendation, I would ask you, that we for an internal ADU.
One-time fee,
Right, one-time fee, recorded, and we recorded an affidavit with each one, with each county property. Yearly.
I like that. You want me to make a motion?
Yes, please. Hold on one second. I wasn't done discussing.
Questions
or comments. As I observed this, is there's really related language in this. This is a good recipe for having conflicting laws by having this piece of paper with closely related ordinance language and then a separate ordinance. I would be a little more comfortable if we had in the affidavit that said we are currently in compliance with the approved Heights ordinance and then reference the ordinance wherever it's at.
And I can change that.
And the fees need to be in our.
Yeah, but I have to have the fees in. Fees schedule.
We want to delay the motion and see the final version next council meeting?
No, because we're approving the fee schedule, not the affidavit.
The next one, I would, because I want to read it also, look at the. That portion of it, say yes. And so if you will approve that fee schedule, and we'll.
Okay. I'll second the.
I'll make a motion first. I move that we approve an accessory dwelling unit fee schedule, $150 one-time application. Internal accessory dwelling unit. have a $20 yearly renewal fee, yes.
Are you in charge of renewal that $20 fee the first year or is it $150?
I will
Business
think
license
we
is
should
the 100. And a normal business license. And then-
Okay. Motion from Diane and a second.
I'll second it.
Second. Gary. Okay, so any further discussion on the fee schedule?
No, but I would like to make a comment that I think our process, where it's not discussion, I think it's been very helpful to have her as a reliable source, person with that feedback that we need to have. Thank you for your honesty.
Did you call her anything?
You said it.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the fee schedule, the each accessory dwelling unit fee schedule for $2 one time and $20 annual. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Thank you. That motion passes. We're moving on to item number 7.1, which is the city council minutes of May 16th. That's not right. Oh, it is. May 16th. Have you had a chance to review it? I would entertain a motion to approve.
I made some changes this afternoon.
Always.
There was some of his names spelled wrong, I think, his last name.
Yeah, and
I made some corrections.
Yeah, Burgo was.
And then, Lindsay is going to change here to 2 bars.
Great. I would entertain a motion.
I will approve the minutes.
I have a motion from Diane, a second.
That was a cost. I move that we approve the minutes for May 16th, 2023, as amended.
As outlined. Perfect. I have a motion from Diane, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Flo. All in favor of approving the minutes for May 16th, say aye.
Aye.
Moving on to May 18th. I have a motion to approve the minutes for May 18th.
I move that we approve the minutes from May 18th, 2023.
Thank you, Flo. Do I have a second? Second, George Ray. All in favor of approving the minutes from May 18th, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Okay, we're going on to some fun discussions real quick. Item number 9.1. Flo, we want to quickly outline a discussion with the chief. Sheriff?
We had a good meeting with the sheriff and one of his helpers who set it up. They were both very positive. Prices are going up, unfortunately. And it's hard to know, I think, what's really fair and what, hopefully the county is being fair with us. Apparently they haven't been charging enough and they feel like they need to charge more to bring this up, which is hard for the city. And so we asked what we could get for what we think we need. And so it looks like we could go forward with some what's in our budget. It won't be exactly what we've had before, but it'll be, I think, enough for our city for having fewer hours that still get the coverage we need.
Just to follow on really quickly, I was really pleased because we were previously told that we cannot go hourly, that we had to go full-time or split full-time. They have retracted that and said that they'd be willing to contract hourly with us. I would propose going from 8 to 10 hours that we've been paying, that we've been contracting with. I would propose actually pulling that back to maybe 5 to 6 hours a day to see what that would do. We can, but it will take a little bit of work because they would have to plan on it. It wouldn't be something we can say today we need. Yes, because I would propose they do 3 hours of patrolling and 3 hours of calls a day. And we can move forward in something on those lines.
Do they have to be consecutive?
No. So we would contract for 5 to 6 hours a day. And we would ask them to do 5 hours of patrol, or excuse me, 3 hours of patrolling and 3 hours of calls and response. See if we can keep in that general vicinity. The reason.
Yes, public to do business with both of us.
Yeah, exactly. But that's why we do 3 hours of patrolling, and then at the end of the day, if there are no calls, then we only have 3 hours of patrolling. But on a day or a week where we have 3 hours of patrolling, we have 8 hours of calls, it's all we can wash out in the end. That makes sense? I'm gonna keep working with Flo and working with them. Sheriff, I will go back after just a straw poll with the city council and propose something along those lines to them and see if they can get some numbers back to us on what that would cost. 'Cause
And
we don't have any numbers.
last time they came in,
Yes, there.
they said that our crime rate on down. Well, is that continuing or is that?
I don't think it is a linear, or I think that's a very subjective opinion, as they're going down because it's not always. I think what they're comparing to is last year, we had a lot of car break-ins in the spring, and we're not experiencing this spring. And, or we had a lot of specific crime one year that we're not seeing this year. This has been a very good year for us. Right. So.
Yeah.
So with that, I'm going to keep proceeding forward and go back to them with the idea that we'll be moving towards 5 to 6 a day. Is anyone opposed to that? Not that this is a motion, but is there any opposition to something along those lines?
So are they thinking of doing this indefinitely now? Or are we still looking down?
It would be a 2-year, it would be a couple-year contract. It would be probably a year-to-year contract that we would maybe do a 3-year contract.
I think once we know what they've done, then it's again, so I think it's back.
Well, we have been contracting for 8 hours, and in the last 2 presentations, they've been over 10, 10.5, 10.9, and I'm just going off memory, because I remember seeing that, I remember. But we're paying for a sheriff to sit at the park and ride for 45 minutes, while he's typing up some report or whatever he's doing. I'm going to go back to them and say, I don't know, 3 hours of driving through the city a day. I don't want to pay to have a sinking sheriff that's out on the road that's writing tickets. Like, I don't see that as value. It's just, unless obviously it's a massive offender and they're going way over speed limit, I don't think that's a value to us. I think public perception and public visibility is what we need.
I would agree.
Well,
Thank
Thank you, public.
Well, I mean, he sits at the church and falls asleep
yes,
for hours, and that's their favorite place.
yes. Item number 9.2 is going to actually carry over to a closed discussion. Who I'm going to discuss in closed meeting. I would ask that we table this one for a closed meeting. Item number 9.3 is Diane. Can you give us an update on 4th of July activities?
I couldn't give you an update at this point. I talked with Facebook city councilors, and we are welcome to participate in the 4th of July parade. There's an application online. So I've had a call to Mayor Tran that I'm here for today. And Councilmember Adams said, of course, we could ride in the front of the parade, but have additionally, we seem to have any problems, quite painful. And that's what's coming. They are in the process, and we'll find out by tomorrow night because of circumstances, whether they're going to actually ride in the parade or as a response to the tragedy of last year, walk alongside their safety. They're and just walk alongside and be right next to the side. So we are in, and we're going to come in and do as we have done traditionally. They just may not themselves. I will know tomorrow night because the events are happening tomorrow. So we're good to go.
Could you please sign up the city, the application for the city and for the youth city council? I think what we did last year was actually really nice where we're all together. We had Yes, yes. We have a
I don't
truck.
hear from them, again, I don't know if your kind of that these council members, it is us coming in as we have in the past.
Right. If you could just let us
So
know.
I want you to apply.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Do we have candy?
I know.
Okay. Okay. We don't yet, it sounds like.
Do you want me to do?
Do you want me
We want lots of candy. But we will, yeah, we're the same, looking.
No.
But we will have to be vigilant. Because whatever we have with us, I have read the instructions that are for the parade, but they are very, of course, very sensitive and tender about what happened last year. So I will probably, is this the proper format, is to have a little text message or email? Or have Jake can send it out to us, what I find out as a follow-up.
Yes.
We're waiting for the next meeting.
No, we need to know as soon as we can.
So I will go ahead and apply for us.
With the YCC, with the
And the
YCC.
YCC and the.
And do we have an update on the unsung hero devotional? Are we invited or to participate in that? Or is that
And
if you need help, if you want, if I can help.
yeah, I will ask her what she wants us to do.
Okay.
I didn't send any.
Yeah.
The one did bring up that there was that in the air. But told him that was the best.
You are the best. That's why you're assigned to it.
Anyway, so on that, I will be back with us as soon as I know.
Excellent. Item number 9.4, land sky discussions. We had a discussion before this meeting. Residents, we had a developer, we had a few residents in here. Conversations are still going positively. The developer has been up there, has put down some mats to help with mudslide. He's seeded. He's working very well with the residents. I think that's a really good discussion as to what's going on there. Without getting into too much detail. Item number 9.5. Founders Day. That's you, Flo.
We've had a great discussion with the mayor, staff, a couple weeks ago, just brainstorming ideas. And we also came up with a date, Saturday, August 26th, here. We wanted to have a car show, and we want to have food trucks
At this location.
at this location because, unfortunately, and maybe not, maybe it's just fine, Nichols Park is probably slated for that.
But I think it's actually, with what has been discussed, I think it's actually going to bode very well here. It'll be cool.
It'll be fine with the rest of the situations that we think it'll be great here, and apparently they've had cars here. We can use some of the parking across the street and even over the walk pedestrian bridge.
You want to talk about some of the ideas?
Oh, we have lots of ideas. I mentioned a couple of them, and plus maybe a chalk drawing contest, sidewalk chalk. And then maybe a little quilt show and some music. We haven't decided if it should be a band or just a DJ. Part of it's going to be the expense. So we want to keep it kind of simple, but with lots of fun. And also, Julia Bush said she would help with a hike, and then somebody.
Throughout the week, not bad.
Yeah. And also throughout the week, and this is kind of a cute idea, it's kind of a scavenger hunt, but it's with QR codes and with history and places around the city. What have I missed?
The emergency preparedness, we're going to be invited to help do a booth downstairs. And the city council is going to be giving out ice cream cones.
So will there be some downstairs?
So inside, we have some quilters in the city that I think would be really excited to show some of their quilting and tell the history around it.
Some draw.
The ice cream machine will be right at the door. in and out downstairs.
Or we could have a use.
Well, no, hold on, let's scale, let's pump that brake a little bit. You can have a small section of the basement, because there is going to be others that are going to be in the basement as well. So
I'm not sure very much.
I would not say the entire basement, no, but we divide it out in quarters, I think you could count on a quarter of the
Is
basement.
it, is it for like awnings?
I don't think so. I think we're going to try something unique. We're going to try and do a flyover with that 35.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
I think we can do it. So we're going to have some fun things, and it's just going to be a fun evening.
Are there gonna be fireworks?
No, not this year. We're going to try something different and see what it's going to be. And like Flo talked about, and the ladies were fantastic. They had a lot of really fun ideas. And said, let's try this, and let's add things to it in years to come. If this is going to work, if this isn't, let's try something completely different next year. We have pretty good buy-in.
Yay.
Sounds awesome.
Can I ask another question?
Moving on.
Any candidates for city council, hold space to be outside so that the members of the community can get to know those.
I think that's actually a really good idea, and we might even do something specifically. Yeah, absolutely. That's a
So
good idea.
someone would be.
Yeah, or,
Great idea.
yeah, or a small something inside. I don't know.
And when
We'll
would
talk
you
about
like to use city council?
What did we talk about?
it. We have something.
Yeah, it's,
Or can you pass the county to the rest of the group? Thank you.
like, we, Evelyn, no, or was it?
Crystal.
Crystal,
Send me a
okay.
message, so I know that.
Yes.
Send me a message.
Let's circle that date.
I will tell them that that's the date and that yes,
It's there. It was
It's
actually,
minimal.
the date was very specific because it's actual starts. It's before BYU Utah game starts. But Davis has a game on the 25th, night before. So it's a really good day. After school starts, we're not competing with people traveling. There's going to be a bunch of food trucks, a big car show. So it's going to be fun. It's, you know, the draw we had, the draw people here in years past were those two things. But then we're going to add in a few more things to keep people around and keep them socializing.
and I feel like that you're preparing for thousand.
Right. Yeah, we're preparing for
That's
that.
not typical attendance. You can do it, most of us do not, even when we have.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that we could think about doing is get, moving to.
We've done two of those in the past, and they haven't worked out very well because,
That's a single problem.
right,
Right, but just here,
right, on the wall, sure, yeah.
To keep them occupied, while they go to the emergency preparedness.
So, while the parents are enjoying some of these other things, somebody.
In this room.
No, downstairs,
Oh,
Or,
outside, on the wall.
Instead of wireless.
Item number 9.6 is starting the cemetery committee. The idea is we have received a grant, a significant grant. Eileen, our Councilmember Moss, has talked to some residents that are willing to contribute and pre-buy some plots. We're now ready to have a map, a layout that's going to be presented to this committee and to the city council that a resident, Curtis Cannon, has designed. It's now time to start a cemetery committee. We are going to have on this committee Mr. Darren Branson. He's going to help oversee this, so he can have a lot of the city employees, the public works, all their voice in this meeting. We have Councilmember Moss, Councilmember Diane Anderson. I have already spoken to Mayor Todd Stevenson. And then I would like to see, I've not talked to, maybe you could, Diane, Wright, just Colin Wright.
And,
If you're not part of this committee.
Yeah, it's the same group. We're kind of not making it any bigger because I think everyone on that has a vested interest in seeing this work out well. So we are going to get that kicked off. We're going to get that going. Darren's going to oversee this committee and run this committee. And so he's going to be the one working with everyone to set up dates and times of when we can start meeting and get this rolling. You may.
It got brought to my attention that has there been a study on the amount of rocks?
Yes.
There's been core samples taken, and some geotech.
We are good for where it's being proposed.
No rocks the size of both sides.
So that is something I would love to be in a position where we can start having a plan together, and then start pre-sales. You know, if we can get some donations, some sizable donations to this fund, then once it's built, we can potentially sell it a tax deductible donation. We can then maybe potentially sell a lot for $1. So there's people.
the amount that was thrown out to our potential donors was, we donate $20,000 to our cemetery, then we can sell you to.
Right. So if we can, and that's the only time your voice, the only time people can hear you. So the idea would be to see if we can generate about $300,000 in revenue. Get us, I feel very comfortable at this point. We stopped it 3 years ago, because we did have the funding. The funding is now in place. I feel very comfortable with this. This is a fun event that we're going to start kicking off and move forward. I would love to see it in a position where we can start some sort of construction this fall, potentially next spring, start being in a position where we can start burying people. There's a lot of time, there's a lot of work, but it's going to be pretty fun. Darren, I'm sorry, that's the things you didn't like, and I know you're mad as can be at me over there, but we're going to go forward. There was nothing on the consent calendar.
Oh, I get that.
So with that being said, we'll move over to item number 10, which is city council and staff reports. Gary Anderson, you have anything?
I do not.
Thank you. Close staff, Councilmember Staff, do you have anything? Councilmember Anderson, do you have anything? Councilmember Moss, do you have anything? Yes, great.
I do have some. I did want to make a comment. I made a comment last year when we had the open meeting, the extradition hearing. I said something that I think is really important, and so I think I want to reiterate it this year too at the budget conversation. We talk about the budgets here, but the people who really matter with the budget is the staff. You guys are the ones day to day that really have the money in your hands, and you get to decide what happens. We really don't. We're just kind of watching it and deciding a little bit. So thank you for your responsibility with it. It's not us that's doing it, it's you guys. And so let us know if there's anything we can do different to help you out, because you're the one that's really not us.
I love you, man. You're awesome. Jeff, do you have anything to say? Thank you for your presentation. That went long, but that's really good to hear. And I know you've done a lot of research on the county, and so I really appreciate the presentation. Thank you, Jeff. Darren, do you have anything? UDOT, anything going on?
We're just finishing out, we're doing a lot of walk through right now. As you see, they're finishing up paving on everything through the rest right now.
How is the Shady Lane project going?
We are done with the main line, first was, within the next 30 days, we'll be getting close to that.
So would you like to give an update on Mountain Road?
Mountain Road is scheduled to start paving tomorrow morning. I delayed one day from rain last week, so we pushed this one more day. So
How many days straight?
3.
So we'll be done by this weekend. Yes. Excellent. Good job. Thank you. Jacob Smith.
I think you heard enough. Okay.
Excellent. This has been a long one, but we have a closed meeting. So I would look for a motion to move to closed meeting. Eileen and Diane, all in favor of moving to closed meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are going to start the closed meeting in